Sorry to interrupt, Rhiannon.
That's absolutely fine, thank you. As you can probably tell from that, Helen, who's joined me on the call tonight, is our voice of experience here. So Helen Smedley is one of our regional development officers, and she will be here to chime in and assist with anything that I may overlook, or to just help pad out really some of the topics, depending on any questions that you might have. Probably the vast majority of what we're going to look at tonight is very much concerning how we manage memberships and the renewals that are within the club, because ultimately that's probably going to be one of the biggest reasons that you're going to be using the Sport 80 system for the club. But we're going to cover off a few other areas as well. So we're going to look at things like how you can share the workload. We're going to look at handing over when you reach the end of your time and somebody else is stepping into the role. And we're going to be looking at some of the other responsibilities you have, like registering your have-a-goes, renewing your range, entering tournaments, registering for courses. So there's quite a lot here. We are doing the recording because we want people, so yourselves and people who come in the future, to be able to use this. And if you don't have an opportunity to do a kind of formal handover to someone, then we're hoping that you'll be able to come back to this and make use of it. As we go along and work our way through, some of what I've got in here, we may find that we don't particularly need to go into it, because it's probably something that you may have already touched upon. So we'll just kind of gauge it as we go along, and I'll be steered by you if there is anything in particular that you feel you don't really need to go over as much. So obviously the first thing that we're looking at here for a lot of people is going to be you become your club secretary. You're all of a sudden the person that's responsible for the admin in the club's account. And you may or may not have been given any insight in how to do things like, how do you log into the portal? How do you find the club's account? Now, I'm assuming that everybody here has managed to log in so far. So if there is anybody that's never done that, this will talk you through that. This particular slide, though, is certainly something that's going to be very handy for you to mention to the new members that join your club. So what a lot of people don't necessarily know is that before you can log into the portal for the first time, you need to have your account activated. And by that, we send you an email, or I should say the system sends you an email so that you can set a password and you can log into your account for the very first time. We don't need anything special to be able to do that activation. People can simply email activate to our membership email address, and we can do that. Something that's always worth a mention to your members when they join, because otherwise, it's quite common for people to become confused by the fact that they're trying to log in, but they're not getting anywhere, or they find that it's telling them their system, their details are already in the system. So one to bear in mind there. The next few slides are really here as a support resource to help people when it comes to doing that login, where you can go and what you need to do. You may have noticed that we've launched our new website recently, and so as a result the login process has changed slightly. We have now up in our top right hand corner a lovely little person to click on, which starts you and takes you over to our login page. And then another new aspect that people will now see is that once you've done that login, rather than going straight into the portal, you'll see an initial welcome page, which will have various bits and pieces within there. So to get into the main portal, you just need to click on the members portal here, and it will take you to your personal profile. How's everybody been getting on with the new website and with logging in? All right, I'm hoping. I'm always going to take that as a positive. If anybody does find that they're having issues relating to logging in, then, please let me know, drop me a message, pop something in the chat, and we can look to get that sorted out. So once you get past the barrier of being able to log in for the first time, obviously the next step is going to be getting to grips with how do you actually view the club Sport AT account. Now, I recognise a few names of people that have joined the webinar today, so I know that they're, probably people who are very familiar with doing this already. But anybody who has had less of an opportunity to do that so far, what you're looking for when you go into the portal now is in our top left-hand corner, these 3 horizontal lines that are there. And if you click on these, it will open up a menu at the top of which is your name. So if you click on your name, it's then going to show you all of the accounts that you have access to. So you just click on the one that you want to see, and it will take you straight into that. And then obviously, if you want to move between accounts at any time, you just go back, you click on those lines, and you select where you want to go to. Now, you can probably see from my screenshots here as well that the way that the portal is displaying on my screen means that I'm able to see all of these menus in one go. Now, I know that depending on the device that you're using, that's not necessarily always the case. I have seen displays, and this tends to be quite a common one, where once you've gone in to look at a particular profile, rather than having this particular menu ready and available to view, you may have a sort of rectangular space that has profile written on it, and you have to go in and click on that to then be able to see all of these all of these options that are down the side. So when you are come to use the portal, especially if you're referring back to the screenshots, if things don't look exactly like how they look here, don't worry, it will just be a display issue. And if you find that, it poses any issues when it comes to navigating around, then you can just flag those up to us and we'll help you with them. So there are a few common login issues that we hear about. So these could be things that you end up experiencing yourself, or they could be things that your members flag up to you. Hopefully, these will help you along in your role. The top one is probably the one that I see most of all from people. I can't remember my password and I'm not receiving the password reset emails. So the system will only be able to send a password reset if it recognizes that email as a valid user login. And there are 2 things that make something a valid user login. So the email address has to match what's in Sport AT, and the account has to have been activated as well so that it realizes that person is using it. So the important things with this one is, if it's somebody's first time logging in, then you need to let them know that they have to activate their account first of all. But if somebody has logged in before and they're having those issues, normally it's driven by the email address that they're entering. So either they're using an old email address or an incorrect email address, or they've not entered it exactly as it is. So the example that we see quite a lot is people are entering, so-and-so at gmail.com, but they've activated their account with so-and-so at googlemail.com. So unless it has that Google Mail in, it's not going to recognize it. Another really, really common login issue that we come across is people who receive an invalid credentials error message when they're trying to log into the portal. And there are a couple of reasons that can drive this one as well. So if it's been more than 12 months since somebody last logged in, then that message will come up because it's time for the person to reset their password, and they will need to click on the forgotten password option on the login page so they can set a new one. But another reason that drives it tends to be people, when you're using your autofill in your browser to fill in your login details, if it's pulling in out of date details, then you will get the invalid credentials message as well. So we'll always recommend clearing your autofill and manually inputting in your email address and your password. And generally that will resolve the issue. So that's something you can try if it affects yourself, or you obviously, as I said, you can mention to your members. And at the bottom here, another one we hear from people is, I can see my personal profile, but I can't view the club's account. And I think generally when we see this, it's because the previous administrator of the account hasn't actually told us that the role has been handed over to somebody else. So, so that access to the club's account hasn't been put in place yet. And sometimes it could mean that the access privileges need a little bit of adjusting behind the scenes as well. This type of situation is one where, very much get in touch with us, because we should be able to get that solved for you pretty quickly. We're more than happy to, if you want to phone us, that's absolutely fine. Drop us an email, no problem at all. So we just have a little look now at some of the key activities that you'll probably come across. And as you can see, I've kind of, I've popped up in that top right corner some of the resources that we have. These are actually on our website as well, but they might be useful in terms of, the information they have in there, and just covering off some of the topics that we're also going to touch on in here as well. So we have obviously the adding new members, membership renewals, range renewal, registering how it goes, handing over to the next person, booking onto courses, and entering tournaments. Now, there may be other things, that you will come across in your time, or, that you may want to know more about, which we haven't covered off here. And we would be really, really, really open to hearing about that, so that we can plan what we can do from a future webinar point of view, and from making sure that you have the information that you need to be able to support you in what you're doing. So, if you come away from this and think, oh, I really needed to know about this, or I had this question, that's fine. Share that with us, and we will look and see what we can do to help. So let's start by looking at adding in new members. So only current students who are registered and studying with the university can join the university's club. So an important thing for you guys is that if you have staff, coaches, alumni, spouses, friends, basically anyone who isn't a university student, and they want to come and shoot with your club, then they need to have become a member of Archery GB, either through another club or as a direct member. And we would expect them to be able to show that they have membership. They'll either have a plastic membership card that confirms it, or a membership e-card that they can produce. But it is really important to make sure of that, because if they're not, if they're not a member of Archery GB, then it can invalidate the insurance for your members within the club. Now, I know that you have the two classifications, don't you, for members, and in universities. So you've got your novice archers and your more experienced archers as well. So certainly when it comes to novice archers, then as soon as they've completed a beginner's course and joined the club, they should be added to the club's list of athletes as soon as possible to make sure that they're there and registered and their membership gets put in place. When it comes to members who have previously taken part in archery and could already have a Sport 80 profile, then rather than adding them into the system, their existing profile will be able to transfer it over. So that'll save you a little bit of work if you've got people in that situation. So adding new members into Sport 80. So you need to be in your club's account, and you will go to the athlete section, which is in the menu on the left-hand side. And then when you click on list, it's going to show you a full list of all the members that are currently in your club. And over on the right-hand side, there's an add new athlete button that you can click on. So as you'll see, it will pop up a whole window full of different pieces of information it's going to ask you to provide for that person. So just work your way along it. And when you get to the end of it, it should say done. There should be a button kind of here. It's obviously grayed out at the moment that says to done and add membership. And then once you add their membership, they'll be given an Archery GB membership number, and they get a membership email, which includes their e-card, and that all happens instantaneously. If the system does detect that person as already being in our system, then you will get a pop-up advisory message. And the reasons why that could happen is somebody may have been, you know, as we mentioned before, they could have been a member of a previous club, or it could be somebody has maybe started the process of creating an account in Sport 80 and never gotten any further with it. But, you know, because their details are there, the system recognises them. Anybody you get that advisory message for, then all you need to do is email our membership@archerygb.org email address. Let us know the name, date of birth, and postcode of the person that you're trying to add, and we can transfer their profile into your club's list of athletes. So once they're in there, it'll only be a case of adding their membership, assuming they don't already have current membership that they've taken out. There we go. So this kind of reiterates what I was just saying before about what to do when it's detected that somebody is already in the system. The same applies if the person is able to tell you up front that they already have an Archery GB membership number. You know, if you do get anybody that says, yeah, this is what it is, then you can just skip straight to the point of emailing us and letting us know their details, and then we'll look to transfer them in. So we're going to move onto the next slide and just have a look at a couple of examples of adding membership for someone that already has a Sport 80 profile. There you go. So we have got this person at the top here, this hidden person. So this is an example of a person that's in the system. They've got a profile, but they don't have any kind of membership, which is why they've got this add button. So if you click add, you'll be able to go ahead and add their membership to the club. This person at the bottom, though, is somebody who was a member, you know, that does have an Archery GB number, and they have a renew button available next to them. So it's just a case of clicking on renew to be able to renew their membership through the university club. So there are some frequently asked questions that may be asked to yourselves, or may even be, things that have, that you've thought of or asked us before as well. So, will I receive a membership card? Yes. So all of the members of your clubs, they will get a membership e-card that they're going to be able to download to their mobile device and is proof of having valid Archery GB membership. If somebody asks you why haven't they heard anything about their membership, the most important thing to do here is to just check the email address that you hold for that person, because assuming this is correct, they should have automatically had that confirmation email and e-card. The likelihood is that maybe an element of the email address has been, input correctly or numbers transposed around, and that's what's prevented them from receiving it. If the email address needs updating, then you can email us and let us know that some of the details mentioned here, so their name, their membership number, the correct email address, and we'll then get this updated. So if there is a mistake in the members' details that needs correcting, again, this is something that you can email us about to let us know what the information is that needs to be corrected, and we'll get this updated for you.
Rhiannon, we've had a great question in the chat from Gabriella, which is when adding personal details for new members, what is the policy on non-binary and trans athletes? So what is the approach we'd like people to take there?
So when you are adding new members, and what you also find when you're renewing existing members, is that in the details, we now ask for 2 pieces of information. So we will ask you to select the sex at birth for the archer, which is a very important piece of information for us, because that drives where that person will sit from a competition point of view. But once you've selected that, it will ask you the question about whether that person identifies as the same gender as their sex at birth. It's an optional question, so it doesn't have to be answered, but certainly for somebody that is non-binary or that is trans, it gives you a sort of free format area to be able to just put a little bit of detail that's in there. What we also find as well, when people are adding a title for an archer as well, we will sometimes have people using the MX title, or we have had people as well mention pronouns within it as well. This is definitely an area where it would be very, very interesting for us to just keep on hearing your feedback about what's happening within your clubs and what you're hearing from any of your athletes who are non-binary and trans, because without having that feedback and without being able to understand what's happening, what sort of things may be triggering perhaps for a person as well. We need to know those things so that we can look and take that into account. So please, please do let us know, get in touch, drop us an email. We're really, really, I say this a lot, but we are really open to hearing about this, because at the end of the day, it's only knowing about how things are in real life and what people's lived experiences are that help us be able to understand what do we need to be doing from a membership point of view, what the information that we're capturing in there, and sort of how it could feed back as well into other policies and all sorts within there. So keep talking to us about it, I would certainly say, on that score. And then one from Raoul as well. Can we not update the personal info and request to resend the welcome email? So personal info, there's definitely some constraints in terms of what you can and can't do from a personal info point of view. So from memory, being able to update somebody's name and date of birth isn't something that you're able to do, but I believe you should be able to update somebody's address. Someone's email is also a bit of a difficult one to draw a line under, because before somebody has activated their account, their email is, it's just there in the system as their contact email address. And at that stage, it is possible for you to amend it however it needs to be. But once a person has actually activated their account, that email is, intrinsically linked to their login. And so at that stage, we need to be the ones that update the email address, because that's something that, we need to make sure that their login isn't going to be affected and that it's not going to change their access. But yes, requesting to resend the welcome email, we are going to come over to that. So that will certainly be something that you would be able to do. If you found that everything is fine and all well and good within the system, then, yes, we will come on to it. And this slide ties in really nicely with that, Raoul. So this has been phrased as somebody having problems downloading their card or not able to find the email with their e-card. But you can also use the answer to this as the how do I resend somebody's membership email and their e-card. So in any of these situations, resending the membership email is normally really straightforward. So you have to go into the actual member's profile to whom you're going to be resending the email. So you can find them in your athletes list, and then you've just got a little pop-out box so you can go into their account. Once you've got their profile up, you can go over to the membership section that's here. And then once you're in here, just click on the green current button that shows for that person. And when you do that, one of the options that you will see in the window that opens up is to resend membership email. So if you click on that, you'll then see a message that tells you what it's resending, and just warning you as well about making sure you check junk or spam, just in case it goes into them. But click OK, and that will get that email sent over to them. So hopefully, Raoul, that answers that question for you. Thank you. So if we have a think now about what's going to happen at membership renewals time. So I'd imagine for a lot of you, this may have been your first experience of membership renewals, and I would say it's a learning curve as a new person coming into it. There are a few things to do when it comes this time of year. So the membership year is from 1st of October to the 30th of September the following year. And generally, the renewals can start to be processed in the last month of the membership year. And we normally do an email out to the primary contacts of all of our clubs to let you know that this is now something that can be completed in the system. So there are two things that you need to do when you're processing renewals. First of all, you've got the club's membership of Archery GB that needs to be renewed. And obviously that involves arranging for the annual membership fee to be paid. Once that's been done, you can then move on to just checking your details that you've got for your renewing members and renewing their membership. Now, an important thing to be aware of here is that if the club's membership isn't renewed by 30th of September, so, you know, if it's not been touched at all, and you haven't completed any aspect of the club membership renewal part, then when it reaches the 30th of September, the status of the club will convert to lapsed, and then you won't be able to do anything further until the club membership has been added and paid for. I think generally what I'm seeing from you know, from your clubs at the moment is that people have generally been able to start looking at renewing the club's membership before the 30th of September, and those clubs that maybe haven't been able to renew immediately at that point, it's normally because they're in a pending payment situation. And when the club's in, you know, when the club's membership is in that status, you know, you won't see this happening. You won't see the club changing over as lapsed. It's literally only if nothing has been done at all. So renewing the club's membership is, this part of it is probably one of the bigger tasks to work your way through on there. So in the club's account, you need to be going onto the membership screen. And once you're in the membership section of your account, you'll be able to click on your current button so that you can look to work through the renewal details for the club. So as you'll probably all remember from tackling this recently, there are quite a few pages in the renewal window that need to be worked through. And these are all about, very much about making sure the information that's in there is correct and changing anything that's out of date. So that could be committee roles. It could be that an address is out of date. Trying to think of, off the top of my head now, of all the other bits and pieces that are in there. And it's gone, my mind has gone completely blank. So when I'm able to remember if there's anything else that needs to jump out there, I will let you all know. But once you've worked through that membership window, you're going to be able to click on renew and check out to get the renewal fee into the shopping cart. And you'll then see a screen where it's going to tell you what's being purchased, and there will be a billing details section for the club. So if this doesn't auto-populate with the club's details, then these pieces of information, so contact name for the club, the address, a contact email address, they all need to be filled out before you can check out. There are two payment options for the club's renewal fee. So one of them is to pay online using Stripe, which is our card payment option. And the other one is to pay by payment advice. So payment advice generates an invoice with a unique reference so that you can pass it on to your sports union or whoever it is that's responsible for arranging that payment. And they can then either send a bank transfer or a check payment. What we do encourage all of our clubs to do is to include that payment advice reference that's on the invoice that's generated, and to just use that as either the back's payment reference or put it on the back of the check, because that is something that helps us be able to reconcile the payment that has come in, you know, that bit more quicker. And of course, once it's been reconciled, then your invoice is marked as paid and your club is renewed and becomes active. Things to watch out, well, one thing in particular to watch out for here is if you do the club renewal and after 5 days it's still showing as pending, please get in touch with us about that, because it may be something, you know, like the payment has been sent with a slightly different reference than we were expecting, so we may not have been able to identify what it was for, or, you know, it may be something else that has happened here. But if you get in touch with us about that, then we'll work with you to figure out what's happened, so that we can look to get your club membership renewed and active, so that you can go on to renew the memberships and add new members in. In comparison, renewing your members for the next membership year will hopefully be a lot more straightforward, because you are going to go to your athletes list, and just work your way down through everybody that has told you they're going to be renewing for another year, and click on the renew button next to the name. Now, depending on how you prefer to do things in your club, it may be that you're the person that needs to check and make sure that the information for your renewing member is still correct. Other, you know, some clubs do encourage their members to get logged in and check their details up front, so that all the secretary then has to do is the actual renewal part of it. It's up to you how you prefer to do that. But once you've renewed their membership, it is instantaneous, so it will automatically update for the next membership year. And again, they'll get their renewal confirmation email with a new e-card. And just as we did before, Raoul, when we went over issuing, you know, how you reissue the membership email, so it's exactly the same for that renewal confirmation email. Just a difference in terminology in terms of what I've called it, but you can go to the same place, click resend membership email, and it will send them their new details. Good question, Sanjay. Is there a difference between renewing club under 25 or university member? So technically, I suppose the university member membership type, as it were, was you know, created especially for you guys to be able to show that that person is a member of a university club, and it just makes it kind of pop out a bit more on the Sport 80 profile to make it a bit more apparent. Whereas you will find that in the kind of more local archery clubs that are around, they will use the renewing club under 25 to show that, you know, the person that's joined them is that under 25 member of the club. So which do you use? Well, you know, in principle, really, it should be university member that you select when you're doing that. Yep, good point, Brian. Yeah, over 25s could also be university members. Yep. Certainly in terms of what you're putting in there, technically I would go with selecting university member, just because it fits in, you know, and makes it nice and straightforward, you know, with what you're doing, because it just means, you know, you're going to that renewing member and you're just selecting university member each time. If you do pick one of the others, it's not going to be the end of the world, though, because it's not the case, you know, it's not like picking renewing club means that you're going to be charged for that person when you shouldn't have been. Does that kind of make sense, Sanjay? I'll give you a chance to write in the chat box on that one. Does that? Brilliant. All right. So we're going to steer away from memberships now, and we're just going to have a look at Have-A-Goes and beginner courses. So you see I've included a link at the top as well to a document that you'll hopefully find helpful when you do come to registering these. So if you're doing demonstrations, have-a-goes, tasters, beginners courses, they all need to be registered in the Sport 80 system. And there is an optional feature within that to promote what you're doing to the general public as well. So with all of the information that goes into Sport 80, it really helps us to have a fantastic insight into who's taking part in archery and how people are taking part in archery as well. And from that, it gives us that opportunity to just look at things like, what are people asking us for? What are people looking for? How can we help them gain access to the sorts of sessions or events that they're interested in? It also helps us to look at things like, well, what do we need to do in terms of our processes and procedures to give support to clubs like yourselves and our coaches, and to anybody that's delivering these events as well. And of course, also having that insight means we can use it when we're looking at future funding applications and thinking about our commercial strategy. So there are lots of benefits to having that information within there. And also capturing it in there, I think as well, from your guys' point of view as well, you'll be able to see, that history of the sorts of events that your club has put on. And from there, it's going to be able to give you a feel for yourselves as well about what's particularly effective for your club, what's kind of driving people towards you. And so then you can use that to think about whether there's more you want to be doing in that arena, or whether there's anything kind of extra you want to look to do to maybe encourage more people to get involved. It is a relatively quick process to put on. It should take less than 5 minutes. Maybe the first time around, when you're getting used to everything, it'll take slightly longer. But I think it's one of those activities that you do where, once you've done it, it just becomes that much quicker to be able to do it the next time. Preferably, these kinds of events should be added into Sport 80 at least 12 hours before. So this link just up at the top as well will give you a walkthrough. So haven't included all the slides for how to do this in this one, but everything that you need will be here in this registration guide.
Rhiannon, I just wondered if I could just chip in.
You can indeed.
Just to build on what Rhiannon was saying there about registering your events for beginners, they by next year can be registered on a new system called the CMS, the Club Management System, which we'll be switching over to next year at some point. So if you're not yet familiar with the system that's running, that's live at the moment, and you want to just learn the new system, the regional development officer for your area or the club development officer can talk you through how to use the CMS instead, and you can jump over to that. The benefits of that are that it actually produces a free web page for you to advertise when your courses will be, points to your communication channels, so your socials, or if you've got an existing website, and you can choose to run bookings through the system as well if you wish, so people can actually pay and book for a place on a beginner's course there and then. You may not wish to put the payments through, but you can still put your information on that system. You can also choose to run your memberships through that once you get familiar with the system as well. There's a lot to talk through about the CMS, and there's a lot that it can do for you. So as I say, if you're interested in that, it's probably a longer conversation on a different time with a development officer, and we'd be happy to chat that through with you.
Thanks, Helen.
Thanks, Rhiannon.
So just reverting back quickly to where you can, just lost my headphone. So where you can see the events that have been registered previously, or where you need to go to be able to register one. So within your club's account, you're looking for the Have a Go and course registrations section. And once you click onto that, it will show you everything that's ever been done on there. So all the events that have gone and any events that are current at the moment. So the next section we're going to have a look at is range registration. So this is something that happens every 3 years. So depending on when the range was last registered in the system, may mean that it's something that in your time, you may not have to do this at all. But we've popped it in here so that if somebody does come across it, or somebody in the future, it's their turn to deal with that, then at least they'll have a little bit of information here to get them started. So clubs are responsible for registering all of the ranges that they use in Sport 80. As I said, those registrations last for 3 years, and within the Sport 80 system, you'll be able to see the date when a range was registered and when it's valid until. The person that's listed as the primary contact for the club starts to receive reminder emails 90 days before the range is due to expire. So that's the indicator that they can get on and renew the range from that point onwards. If the range isn't renewed and it expires, then the primary contact gets a further email letting them know about that. And the important thing to be aware of here is that if your club only has one range and it's that range that's expired, the club will be suspended in the Sport 80 system. Okay, because you have to have a valid range, at least one valid range for your club. And with the club being suspended, that has that knock-on effect to the status of the memberships within the club. So you may then find that you have members saying to you, hey, I looked at my account and it's showing that my membership is suspended. What's going on? Haven't in this section over here, haven't gone into sort of loads of detail in relation to range registration, because like I said, with it being something that's happening every 3 years and not sort of being aware of whether there is anyone that will actively need to deal with that now, I wanted to focus a bit more on the membership section than this in itself. Certainly, to be able to see what's registered for your club, you can go into the range registrations in the club's account, and this will show you the ranges that are registered at the moment. So as I said, shows you their status, when it's valid to, and it shows you that the range, whether the range complies with our rules of shooting. This is a section that you would also go in to deal with the range renewal. There are some other useful resources that link in with ranges on our website, and I've included them here. If anybody does find themselves in a position where they are going to need to be renewing their range at any time over the course of the next year, as it were, while you're responsible for the club, please feel free to get in touch and ask any questions that you might have, and we will help you with that. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Helen?
I was just going to chip in there in case anyone was concerned, to just put your kind of fears at rest. If you're using an indoor range and your range is secure, as in the 3 walls that you shoot towards and the ceiling are secured, that no one can enter those ranges, that there's no one hiding in any cupboards, and you've got the windows closed, then your range is likely to comply, because for indoor ranges, the Archery GB rules of shooting simply states you must have impenetrable walls and ceiling. It's more to do with your outdoor ranges that the club would have to undertake a self-assessment against the rules of shooting and just check whether your range complies. If you've got a vast field outside, then you're likely to be able to comply no problem. You just need to check the distances that you can achieve, as in your overshoot areas and the side safety areas. There is a range diagram as well, if you're shooting target, which most of you will be. There is a range diagram target, and there's a separate appendix in the range, which is really useful to refer to. Draw up your own range diagram with measurements similar to the one in the rules of shooting and see how it compares. Again, if, as Rhiannon has said, if you've got a query, the local development officer is there to support you, and we can help you to assess, basically to make that decision around whether it's likely to comply or not. But it's nothing to panic about. Thanks, Rhiannon.
Thank you. Okay. So I just want to touch on next about how you can share the workload in Sport 80. So I know that from what I've seen since I joined Archery GB, that normally for your clubs, you'll have your club secretary, who is generally the primary contact for the club in the system and will have full admin access to the club's account. But I don't know how well known it may be within your clubs that you don't have to be the only person that has that full access. It can be granted to other members of the committee if needed, especially if you've got more than one person that deals with memberships, or if you've got somebody that deals with memberships, somebody that deals with have-a-goes and beginners courses as well. So it is possible to grant admin access to another committee member if needed. And we'll just have a look as we go through here now about how you can go about doing this. So I have focused on the slides that are within here, about how you can do this yourself. But I should add in that if it's not something that you feel particularly comfortable perhaps doing in relation to it, it is something that you can ask us to do. And as long as you tell us who you want to have access to the club's record and give us their details, then we can get them added for you. So in your club's account, you're going to be looking for the edit profile button that's under your club name. And once you click on this, it's going to just open up, and the first screen it's going to show you says roles here. Okay, and it's going to show you a list at the top of everybody that currently has an active role. So normally, your club secretary, whoever might be down as, perhaps may have been added as a super admin. To add extra roles, you need to click on the add role button here. And then it will ask you about whether you're adding the role for yourself. And normally at this point, unless you do need to add an extra role in for yourself, you're going to be selecting no. The next thing it's going to ask you to put in is to select which role you want for this person. So the important thing here is that if you want somebody to be able to have access to the club's account, to be able to view it and, do those kind of administration activities within it, you need to select club secretary from the list of roles. So this role is kind of multi-purpose. So it is used to actually show who our actual club secretary is, but it is also a role that grants access to the club's account. Not all of the roles that are listed within the drop-down menu do come with that access. So some of them are just, purely there from an information point of view and show us who is on the committee member, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to do anything in there. Oh, take care, Alan. If you need to catch up on anything or speak, we can do that another time. So, as I said, if the person's going to need access, select the club secretary option. And then it's going to ask you to give in various pieces of information about that person. Now, the important thing here is you need to make sure you're entering the information exactly as it appears in Sport 80 before you submit it. So probably the most common thing I see here is somebody, you know, if somebody's account is in the name of Alexander and you put Alex in there, then the system will not be able to recognize who it is that you're trying to add. All of the details have to match up with what's in the Sport 80 system. You will get a pop-up message though, if that happens, so you'll be able to go back and make amendments before you click submit. Now, once you've submitted the details, that person will then appear in the list of active roles. So, you know, we're partway there at this stage. The final step is to scroll down to the very bottom of the page, and there's another submit button there. Okay, so this needs to be clicked on, otherwise the changes that you've made aren't going to go ahead. And once you've clicked on that submit button, when you're back on your front screen, you're going to be able to see that person showing in your active roles here, here on the front. And then, of course, from there, it's just a case of, you know, whoever the person is that you're adding, that you've added, just needing to go through those kind of initial steps of making sure, do they need to activate their account? You know, once they've done that, are they able to view the club's account as they need to be able to? And this all links in really well with handing over to the new secretary when you reach the end of your time on the committee. So this is really, really important because if it doesn't get completed, then when the next secretary steps into role, there will always be inevitably a sort of period of delay while we need somebody normally within the students' union or the sports union to be able to sort of validate that, yes, they definitely are the new secretary for us to be able to add them. So making sure this is done really, really helps with the smooth running of the club and making sure the next person can just be able to, you know, get on and take over. It is very, very similar to granting access to another committee member. So, you know, you're following the same steps in that you're going into edit profile. You are going to add roles for the new person. So whoever the new club secretary is, you want to create for them, you want to add for them exactly the same roles that you have. So if you're secretary and super admin, add them as club secretary and then add them as super admin as well. Once you've added their roles, you will see, and if I just go back a screen, hopefully you'll be able to see it on this previous one. So you'll see here next to them, these three little dots. And if you click on that, it's going to give you the option to set that person as the primary contact for the club. So at this point, once they're added in, you can make them the primary contact and then they'll show at the top of the list and you will unfortunately drop down a little bit further. Now, once you've done that and they're added and you've set the primary contact, only at that point are you going to delete your own roles. Because if you do this too soon, your access will be gone and everything will be in a kind of halfway state there. So you go to the same three little dots that we did for the primary contact and just click on those next to your name, and it will give you a delete button that you can click on. And that then moves your roles from the top section of active roles down into the historic roles section of the screen. And then just as we did previously before, to finish making those changes, click on the submit button in the bottom right corner. And that means your new person is in place, your roles are gone, your access has now been taken away. The new person might find that, and you may see this as well, once you set your new person as primary contact, the email address may not automatically update to the new person's. So it's not an instantaneous change. It does happen normally within the first 24 hours and does happen automatically. So that's just something to be aware of. You know, if you look and think, how come that hasn't changed? It will, it's just not an immediate one. As I said before, if it's not something, you know, if you come to do it and just think, you know what, I don't know if I'm doing this right, or you start doing it and then maybe accidentally delete yourself before you've added the new person, you can just get in touch with us at our usual membership@archerygb.org email address and just tell us what it is that you're looking to do. Okay, so let us know who's going into role, what their membership number is, and then we'll look to get that sorted out for you. I have got a couple more slides now that I've put together. I wouldn't say that they're immensely detailed. They're very much just about giving some very, very basic information. So certainly from my point of view, you know, if there are more questions and more you need to know about entering tournaments and the courses that we offer as well, this is something I'd be really interested to hear about and to get to know what sort of questions there are. So for the time being, when it comes to tournaments and competitions, as I said, I've just put some links on here so that you know where you can go and have a look on our website. There's some information about what's out there and about the student archery leagues. I've also included a couple of other links that you might also find useful when it comes to competitions. You will find that we have a competition finder tool on our website that you can use to have a look and see if there's anything out there that you're interested in taking part in. Once you've found it, there's a read more option so that you can have a look, you know, a bit further at the details that are on there. And if competitions are able to be entered through the Sport 80 portal, there's an Enter Now button you will click on. Not all competitions are necessarily open to being entered through the portal. So you will find that some of them have a different route, which, you know, could involve going to a club's website, or they may have provided a particular application form that they ask people to fill in and return to them. So similarly with courses, we've obviously got on our website details about the coaching courses that are available and about our instructor award course that we offer. In addition to that, you've got you can use our course finder on our website, and obviously that will probably predominantly help you, you know, be able to find things like the coaching and instructor courses, but you'll also be able to enter any webinars that are available through that particular route. So probably always worth just keeping an eye on and seeing what's coming up, you know, and what's around that you might be interested in. Similarly to tournaments, you've got a read more button, a read more section so that you can find out a bit more, and an enter now so that you can book a place on it. And then we'll look finally at our regional development officers. And of course, as we mentioned at the beginning, Helen, who's with us today, she's one of our regional development officers. So they work very collaboratively with clubs and all sorts of associations and organisations. I have put some information on the page just about the sorts of things they do and about where you can go to find the contact details for your, who your regional officer is. And Helen has very kindly just popped all of those into the chat box as well, so that you can see them in there. Helen, would you like to just give just a little bit of an overview into the sorts of things that the regional development officers can support the university clubs with?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Rhiannon. Yes, in each of the areas around the country, as you see in the list there is a development officer. Some of us are full-time and some of us are more part-time, but our purpose is to focus on club development. So that includes everything to do with club health. So it could be to do with how do you attract new members into your club? How do you sustain them into regular shooting members? How do you prevent drop-off? How do you keep member retention high? It could be around equipping and supporting your committee volunteers. It could be around competition progression. I know there is lots of healthy university leagues, but it could be that you have questions around how to access those. We can put you in direction, as Rhiannon has mentioned, around coach training and the training opportunities Archery GB offers around club development. For example, we do organise free club development webinars through the Sport England support of Club Matters, which Archery GB members can access. So that could be around the idea of around the area of finances, or your member experience or volunteer experience, planning for your future, inclusivity. There's all sorts of different topics that we can help you with. If you're putting together funding bids, we're also available to read over applications before you submit them and perhaps offer you some advice before you submit. Or it could just be that you have an issue in your club that you want to talk through with someone in archery. We'd be very happy to do that as well. Of course, we're also a good link to your local county structures if you have them, or regional structures or other nearby clubs. So do feel free to contact us about club development. Thank you, Rhiannon.
Thanks, Helen. I think Helen's able to give us a lot more of a better insight there than just having, the kind of words on the page. Definitely got the more human insight into it. So here we go, everybody. This kind of brings me to the end, and this is really very much an opportunity for, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, so about anything that's been in the webinar, or if you want to let me know what you'd be interested to know more about in future webinars, that'd be great. If you'd like to do that privately, rather than doing it in this forum, then I've included my email address on this particular slide. So feel free to use that and just let me know. I'd really appreciate your feedback on all of this. And I really appreciate you giving up your time and just the patience as well for listening to me tonight. This has been my first webinar as well. So, I'm going to be coming away from this with things that I'll be learning from it. But in the meantime, yeah, over to you. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask?
If you're thinking of a question, I'd be really interested to hear if you've all started your beginners courses, or is that still to come at your university? So you can put that in the chat, or if you want to come on microphone, then feel free to come off mute and tell us about that.
And I'm poised thinking, I wonder if Kieran can type fast enough here. We're all waiting on you, Kieran. Okay, so when registering members as a university member, are they covered to participate in events such as books? So are you thinking about this from, does that class them as being a valid member, a valid Archery GB member? Yes, it absolutely does. So, get that person added, get their membership added, and they are going to be well away to be able to take part in the different competitions that are out there.
Yeah. Now, Bucks University events have their own insurance, but they bring in the rule that everyone competing needs to be an Archery GB member. So yeah, well, Bethany's there, not Brian.
I know, okay. I know.
Okay,
that really threw me as well.
Okay, thanks, Bethany. That's great. Feel free to come on mic as well, Bethany, if you wanted to add anything then.
No pressure though.
Good question.
Hi, yeah, happy to confuse everybody. I'm logged in as Brian, not myself. Yeah, most of the leagues and books, for that matter, do require Archery GB membership for you to compete in them. It's not so much covered to participate, just more as a requirement for your entry. So yeah, you will be asked for your membership cards at all the books events as previous years. That's it, really.
Thanks, Bethany.
We do have a feedback link on all our webinars for you to offer some feedback. So if you are thinking about popping off, then could I encourage you to click the link and give us a little bit of feedback before you go. But do pop any more questions in the chat that you were thinking of. I see a couple of people still typing, so I'm not trying to get rid of anyone. Just popping that in there if you need to go. Rhiannon's covered a huge amount of information and done very well tonight, so there may not be questions that you can think of off the top of your head, but as you said, we're here to help. So
I'm playing, yeah, I think to myself, I hope there won't be questions, but sometimes when you're putting these things together, you think you've covered everything that you need to do. And sometimes it's only when somebody asks that question and you suddenly realize, oh, okay, yeah, that would have been really helpful to mention. Okay, so I think my question is a bit too bespoke for our club. No, our club covers multiple universities, but we operate under one university. Would our student members from other universities still be able to shoot for bucks without having the specific university student card? Ooh. That's a question I surely need to